Funky fantasy. The bowl. Stratosaurus. Bum. Special guest edition. It's the War of Nerds. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the War of Nerds podcast. Another brilliant, shiny, gloomy, rainy, stormy, wintry, or tornado-y day, depending on where you're at. Hopefully, you're being safe and enjoying your night. I'm Nathan Helm, the Funky Fantasy Night. The Funky Fantasy Man, sweet Lord.
Yes, Sir Knight. I am the
And I-
bull, but you guys know me as Alfred Muller.
And I'm Ryan Morgan, also known as Stratosaurus.
And tonight,
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Oh, my bad.
no. You know what? Tonight we're doing a new tradition. Go ahead.
All right, I'm at the screen. Apparently, TikTok's Fred Durst. So.
Oh,
I like it.
I hadn't heard that, but I like it.
And that was the first time our guest has introduced themselves, so it took less work for me to do. So y'all already know.
We should have been
so
like, and our
Atlas-
guest needs no introduction.
Our guest needs no introduction. And a
said you
stormy
wouldn't
night
know
when
him.
the clouds show, Atlas breaks through the light.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and books if you have any, if you've got one to show up, all that good stuff. Take it away.
Sure. I'm Atlas Creed. I kind of popped up on TikTok randomly a couple months ago. Started making a stir with my book Armitage and the stupid, quirky videos that every now and then catch on. Who knows? I am a fantasy sci-fi author. My debut novel is coming out in June. I've actually got a copy of it right here. I don't
Perfect.
mind the shameless plug. Here you go, Armitage.
By all means, please.
That's what you're
Probably
here for.
backwards. Yeah.
Nice.
This one is a dark urban fantasy that did not originally start as a fantasy at all. It was just a crime mystery. And I have another book in the works, aside from book 2 to that is a sci-fi that I cannot wait to get out. So,
Well, then I already have my first question. First of all, you and Stratos would be great friends. Y'all should get together and have a party, being urban writers. But I've got to know, are you a fan of the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, being an urban
Oh.
fantasy writer?
I've upset a few people by this already. I have not read the Dresden Files yet. I have also not read anything by Brandon Sanderson. I am currently working my way through Mistborn. I've been
I am
roasted,
the only
so
one here
bring
who
it
has
on.
read Brandon Sanderson. So you're good.
Yeah, it's okay. We're Ryan and I are slowly attempting to get through the Way of Kings, and it's good. It's just it's very similar to Martin. It's very thick. It takes a while to decipher some of the stuff, and it's lore dense, which I think that's Brandon Sanderson's core marker of an author, is that he is a world crafting expert, and that's just comes with the style. So Atlas, being an indie author as you are, I want to know, for your book, is this the only book that you have right now?
Yes, under my pen name it is.
Okay, so with this journey of your book, what has been your process for creating your world, magic, characters, all of that stuff? Pantser, plotter, any of that? I'd like to know.
I am 100% a pantser who does not wear pants at all. I literally just commando my way through the story as best I can. However, the magic system in the world that I created in this book, that basically the book had started as its own thing, and then I attached this world that I had started creating in high school with it. And the magic system has evolved. Originally, I started building the magic system as these elemental warriors, and then Avatar: The Last Airbender came out on TV. I was like, well, trash that, I guess, because they did it much better than I ever could. And it just kind of evolved over time. So it's a process. What is that? I don't know. But yeah, the world has just kind of taken shape and evolved over time. There's no real process to it. It's just kind of an amalgamation of things that I thought were cool and somehow found a way to make them work.
You saying that word brings my memory back to a video you did on TikTok, which I was like bowing down to you on that. If y'all didn't see it, Alfred Ryan, go onto his profile on TikTok and look for when he just completely, utterly destroyed someone about using big words and stuff. It was, oh my gosh, great video. I won't forget that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That was brilliant.
So I want to jump into a question, and I feel like a lot of indie authors I've talked to haven't dabbled yet in this area, but I know you did, and you had extreme success in a very short period of time, and that is Kickstarter. It's basically what I view as the leveling ground for indie authors compared to trad publishers, because of its resources. But please, can you tell us a little bit about what you use Kickstarter for and what happened with your campaign?
Sure. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. So this was actually my second attempt with this book at Kickstarter. The first one failed miserably because I put it out there and told no one. I thought the mystery and intrigue would be enough. Found out quickly that it doesn't work if no one knows about it. So too much mystery is not a good thing, I guess. But second attempt for it, I did talk to another indie author who did a phenomenal job with hers. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her, but Paula Lafferty. She had
Name sounds
wild
familiar.
success with. Oh yeah, so if you don't know her, definitely go look her up. She's had wild success so far, as far as her indie book is concerned, and I think she went for like $10,000 target and like 6 times past that. She did phenomenal. I'm doing pretty good with this next one. It's definitely not as high as hers by any margin, but I am happy with the support that I've been getting. I talked to Merrick Books, is who helped Paula out with hers. They do a lot of deluxe edition stuff to help indie authors with Kickstarters, and they were nice enough to give me some pointers. Obviously, I wasn't doing a deluxe edition, but I did last minute decide to throw in some character art that I had around a hardcover wrap and throw that up as one of the rewards. And that's been the highest backed reward tier, if you will. So I would say that my expectations, I thought, hey, I could use this as a tool for pre-orders for signed copies because I don't plan on using TikTok Shop and whatnot. But I will say that, much to my surprise, people really want hardcover and deluxe edition styles of your novel, even if you're a debut author. It, like, that was my bar. I was like, oh, nobody's really going to care much about a debut author, but I was surprised. People really want that stuff. So if that's the only advice I could give, I would say come over the deluxe edition, hardcover edition, and market it that way.
Absolutely. There's
Absolutely. Yeah.
a good buddy of mine that I'm friends with on TikTok and Facebook and everything, Richard Fierce. If anybody listening, or Atlas, if you want some more help or tips on Kickstarter, he's run like 12 campaigns, funded them, and he's got a different, like, if you look at his breakdown of tiers and everything, it just gives you a multitude of ideas of what you can make them, the pricing and all that stuff. And he's super great indie author, always willing to help. So for anybody listening, sorry, Richard, you may get a whole bunch of emails, but uh, he's taken me under his wing and helped me with that. So I will be launching a Kickstarter soon. But like I said, and as you've experienced, it's helping indie authors be able to fund a lot of the stuff that we have to front the cost for. And like you said, it could be used for pre-orders. It could be used to gain a following to begin with. And people on Kickstarter want to buy books, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
100%.
100. Yeah, completely agree with that. I love the idea of Kickstarter, and like we've talked about that a couple times now, and like to see success with that is brilliant. But tie it back a little bit into your book with the starting as a crime and then kind of building your fantasy into that. I know you said you're a pantser, but is it kind of a mystery, or are you solving the crime as you go along? And like if you are pantsing that, how do you kind of tie in your details later on in the book without giving away too many spoilers there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't know how it was going to come together. I knew that I wanted to write a crime mystery. I just read through Stephen King's Mr. Mercedes book, and I kind of liked his approach to the crime mystery, where you're getting that, the antagonist perspective. I didn't want to go that far, but I wanted to do something unique with the crime mystery. Um, and basically, it's, the framework of the story is this young girl, Rebecca, who's kind of grieving over her sister's death years prior, and all I knew is that I wanted her to go to the hotel where her sister had gone missing. And I actually sat there and Googled for a good long while, what is the best way to hide a body at the beach and get away for it, with it for decades. So that came into play. If NSA ever, searches my computer, I'm going to be in a whole world of something. But yeah, so I was trying to find clues that I could leave, or ways that I could kind of help a non-detective person in a way that made sense, kind of work their way through. And then I started kind of thinking about this paranormal element, maybe turn it into a little bit more of a horror where her sister's ghost starts visiting her, but her form is taken up on this like really, disfigured kind of like her post-mortem form in ghost shape kind of thing. And of course, she's almost being haunted by it. And that evolved and took shape to the Guardians and Reapers that I once had. So instead of now her sister haunting her, it's this Reaper haunting her. And in her consciousness is embedded this Guardian that this Reaper is hunting. And it just kind of fell together. And then I tried to kind of explain things away by throwing in some of the other magical elements, and then introduced an actual FBI agent to help with the crime, because I wanted to keep the crime mystery portion going. So that's when I introduced this secret agent, and special agent, and I just really liked his character, so he just blossomed into this more major component of the book. And yeah, it's kind of hard to say, but it definitely involved a lot of I write very linearly, but I definitely went back and kind of like threw in Easter eggs at different chapters and random points. I was like, hey, this would be a good place to drop a clue, or maybe a red herring here or something like that. And I have gotten compliments from some of my ARC readers noting how Nico's portion, which is entirely crime mystery, he deals with none of the supernatural or fantasy elements of it. How they talk about his chapter is written more like a detective noir style, whereas Rebecca's is a contrast to that. She's dealing with all of the supernatural and paranormal and fantasy elements, and so ended up, when those paths kind of intersect, trying to merge those writing styles together to still make it make sense, if you will. But in the end, it kind of turns into a little bit of a crime mystery, a little bit of a who done it kind of thing. And yes, it all gets kind of wrapped up with a nice little bow for this first one, but then I let the fantasy mystery element kind of linger, and that's what I'm building on with the future stories.
That's
I don't know if that
fascinating.
answered your question. I kind of rambled.
No, it did. And, like I didn't know that with the two different perspectives and the two different worlds colliding, and that's brilliant. It actually makes me even more intrigued than I already was with that. So that's awesome.
I absolutely love the splitting of reality versus supernatural. Like it for me is almost like how we deal with real life, in the sense that some people do believe, some people don't believe in ghosts and all that type of stuff. So to have those portrayed in a book, I think is very intriguing.
I hope that it becomes something that people really enjoy. I obviously, as an author who hasn't debuted yet, I have no idea how this will be received, but I do hope it's something that people kind of scratch their head about, or at least are intrigued enough to want to read a second one.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I've got kind of a split question for you, and I honestly wouldn't even have had this question until actually talking with Ryan today and talking about points of view and different styles of writing. Do you write in the first person or the third person? And do you write present or past tense, or do you have a style that you prefer over the other? And my second part of that question is, what styles of books do you listen to, point of view wise, or read?
So almost every book that I've ever listened to or read has been primarily third person. I haven't dove into a lot of first person. So that's naturally what I write, just because it was a little bit more familiar to me.
Sure.
So I write third person, past tense. I want to say omniscient because I definitely throw in little tidbits that the character themselves wouldn't know, but I try to keep it close, like a limited perspective, with only branches out where needed.
And when you're listening to an audiobook or reading a book, do you have which style do you prefer to listen to the most or read?
I definitely gravitate more towards third person, but I have yet to find a first person book that I've shied away from. I just don't come across them all too often.
Okay, cool.
Ryan, you got one?
So I know this is your debut novel, and you kind of hinted that there may have been some not under this pen name, but how long have you been writing for in general?
So not that long.
Okay.
Even under my real name, I write kids books. I write kids books under my real name, so I wouldn't really call it. And they're like rhyming kids books. They're not like chapter books, although I am trying one. But still, even that one debuted earlier 2023. So I think I really started taking writing seriously in 2022 when I started this book.
So was it like a post-pandemic, I'm looking for a hobby, or like what kind of drew you into it?
So there's a little bit of history there. As I said, I kind of started crafting this world when I was in high school, but I never really took it seriously. Never really thought. I mean, I actually, a few months ago, found my original draft in a spiral notebook. It was awful.
Nice.
I burned it, right there on the spot. But no, for one of my anniversaries for my wife, I think it was our first anniversary. I actually wrote her a short story covering our first date. I thought it'd be a nice little, hey, here's
Aw.
an anniversary gift. I wrote you a short story. And she liked it. She said, keep it going. So I ended up finishing an entire 80,000 word novel and gave it to her. I was like, I'm not publishing this. It's garbage, but here's your novel. I don't want to hear anything about it. And I haven't. So I don't even know if she's read it. But that kind of bumped me into writing. And that was 2018, I think. So it was a little bit before the pandemic, but then I didn't touch anything since then. And then, yeah, pandemic, stuck in the house. I was kind of like, I'd like to get back into my hobbies, doing music, doing writing, find something to kind
Nice.
of get the juices flowing.
Awesome.
Cool. Do you
What's your-
play an instrument, or do you sing, or what kind of music do you create?
That was what I was going
I
to ask.
can, yeah, I can create cadavers off my singing. No, I play guitar and bass. Here's a.
Oh, nice.
I actually made a video where I was playing guitar, but this is my 7-string baby.
Ooh.
Very nice.
Now that you say it,
I
I think
tell
I
you-
might have seen that video.
Yeah. I go under a band that I don't really do much under, but I release stuff every now and then. So it's kind
Cool.
of fun.
Very cool.
If you ever want to do a collaborated video, I'm a vocalist. So I'm also a drummer and play brass, but I don't really have those on the truck, so can't really. But if you want anything vocal, you want to write like an original song or something, like I'll crush that with you, man, any day.
Dude, I've got a backlog of songs I've already finished. I don't know what kind of singing style you got, but let's do it. Let's figure it out.
Anything from classical, operatic, musical theater to hard rock,
Metal?
country, gospel, not metal. No,
Oh no. Okay.
the
I think I got some
closest
rock.
the closest metal would be like I can sing similarly to David Draymond for like why is my brain hole slipping? The Sound of Silence. So that's about as
Okay.
close to metal as my voice can get.
Love
I
that
could find,
version.
I could find something. My tastes of metal range. I'm sure we could figure out something like Iced Angel or Evergrey. They do more like operatic type metal. I'd be down for that.
I'm
Well,
down.
you guys heard it here first. Check out Atlas and Funky Fantasy Man for an epic collab of grand proportion.
Epic collab of grand proportion. You heard it now. Yeah.
Anyways, that's just a snippet. You don't hear any more on this podcast. You have to come see it elsewhere. Trickle. So
So Atlas,
what I'd like to know, Atlas.
Yep, you go first, Nathan. You're good.
Okay. Alfred and I have been in the spirit of conventions as of late. Him and I are both going to comic book pop culture expo down in Huntsville, Alabama, beginning of April. So I want to know, do you like conventions? If so, have you been to any before? What style do you prefer going to? And are you going to any coming up?
So I love conventions. One of my favorite things to do. I wouldn't say I'm as diehard as some of the cosplayers you see going out there, but I definitely love to go in character. My characters are usually goofy, as goofy as I can make them. I think I went one year. I got the Chewbacca sweater, like a zip up hoodie, and the Chewbacca mask that you open the mouth and make. I went as Ghetto Chewbacca. I got some super baggy pants, a gold chain with a Rebel Alliance symbol glued to it, and I just walked around and had fun with that. Last year I went to Awesome Con. I go to Awesome Con every year. It's in DC. It's basically like the Comic-Con of DC. And they almost always have it towards a theme. I think last year was Guardians of the Galaxy, if I remember correctly. And I went dressed up as, oh no, sorry, it was Lord of the Rings. And I went dressed up as Gandalf the Dude. So I had the Gandalf beard, hair, and hat with just the open, bathrobe like the dude from Big Lebowski. And I went and met Sean Astin, Andy Serkis, and Elijah Wood, and that was awesome. I took my kids. We had a blast. That was a lot of fun. I haven't found my flavor of convention, but I have gone to Katsucon and Otakon, which are both anime driven, and I'm hoping to make it out to Dragon Con this year. We'll see how
Nice.
that goes.
That'd be awesome. I put in for it. I'm just waiting to hear back. But that's
For
a
Dragon Con?
great yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you let me know, brother. You let me know.
That's actually the one that Richard's going to, Nathan. He's part of a author group that's going.
That's right. That's right. Here's to hoping.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ryan, you got one, brother?
No, Alfred had one. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would love to ask about Indie Author Connect, one of your platforms that you use. Tell the listeners a little bit about that and how that started.
Sure. So Indie Author Connect is mostly just a website, but we do have a Discord community that is open for anybody to join. But what it really is kind of like we were talking about at the beginning, how the difference between traditional published and indie published. Traditional has all of these vetted and verified resources at hand that will give you a quality product. And I realized that unless an indie author goes out and does the research themselves, they don't really have that at their disposal. So I wanted to kind of bring that, forward. I started opening applications. I went to people that I had worked with in the past and knew that they had good quality, and that's where I started. And then I opened up applications for anybody that wanted to join. We get editors in there. I send them sample edits. I'll look at their contracts that they would send people to make sure they're not getting scammed or anything like that. And I mean, granted, there's not a whole lot of power that I can leverage over a situation other than booting them off of my service. But I do
Mhm.
make sure that I vet them to the best of my ability so that authors have at least a clean footing. But beyond service providers, we also set up like local events. Talking about conventions, I found like the most major conventions around the US. We've got thousands of them on the webpage. I filled out Canada. I did Europe. I'm still working my way through Europe, but I knocked out UK and Ireland, and I'm kind of still working my way around. It's hefty. But we also just started doing author readings, which is kind of underway. Nathan, you already kind of alluded to that earlier. We had narrators sign up, we had authors sign up. I've already gone through and started making my catalogs, and I'm hoping by the end of this weekend to start pairing people up. I'm planning to do seasons, like a seasonal approach. It'll all be pre-recorded or live in some instances, and we can release it out episodically. 2 authors per episode, 15 episodes total, so 30 authors, and then we'll start and see how season 2 goes.
Sweet.
That's ironic
That's
because we
kind
do
of
the
how we're
same
doing
thing.
it.
Yep. That's incredible though with the Indie Author Connect, because I mean I think it's becoming a theme now, especially with the indie authors that we've talked to, and just even the ones pursuing traditional publishing, a lot of them that have built the community and they've worked their way up with other people, and it's just been the group that has been building each other up as opposed to tearing each other down. And as soon as I saw you doing that, that's just fantastic. And I've been following you on TikTok for a little while. I don't interact as much as I should, but I'm glad even when like the account went away and then you had to rebuild the other one, but like even that itself was how quickly people rallied behind that was just amazing to watch on its own.
Yeah, I love
100%.
the indie author community for that. I
Mhm.
mean, we have each other's back, and I
Mhm.
mean, even though we're segmented out in a bunch of little groups, there's always some bleed over, and it
Mhm.
just makes this one kind of strange community, and I
Yep.
love it.
Yeah.
Atlas, are you following Z Martin books on TikTok?
I might be. I'd have to check.
If you're not, you should. Y'all do some of the similar stuff about supporting indie authors.
Mhm.
You'd hit it off with him real well. He's a horror fantasy writer, so check him out. We'll talk to you about it after the show.
Yeah, please.
But no, seriously, like bless you for doing that, because
Mhm.
I've seen so much since I came onto TikTok. Before I got into the indie author, the writing scene, I came in with the intention of narration only, and I didn't even want to get on TikTok. I hate social media with a burning passion. But I started seeing that there were great people, like the people we have on this podcast right now, who like to support other people and are kind and uplifting while still being maybe criticizing where need be, giving feedback, helping. It's all about growing. That's what we try to do as a community. That's what it's about. It's about being a
Mhm.
family. So that's awesome that you're on the high ground, as Obi-Wan would say.
The advantage ground, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you have the high ground, Padawan, not the low ground where you get your limbs chopped off.
Don't try.
Don't try it, Anakin. I hate you. I bet you do. So I would like to know, and this is my favorite question. By now, the listeners are going to know it's my favorite question to ask. At least one of them. What is your most embarrassing moment you've ever had in your writing career?
Oh, just in my writing career. Okay, that helps limit it down. Had a whole slew of stories pop up there. I'm like, I'll share those. So far, I haven't had too many embarrassing moments. One I decided to share, which I'm sure will come to bite me in the butt later. But I was going through my edits and I found a typo. I was talking later on in the book. He was carrying around a flashlight. I misspelled flashlight with an E instead of an A. That was pretty bad. And it definitely created a nice vivid picture in my head of this guy like wielding this thing around.
Choose your weapons, sir. I have a flashlight. Oh, very well.
It
I
kind of
want
gave
this.
me, I don't, this is diving deep into the archive. It's a bit obscure. Anybody who's a fan of South Park might know that the creators of South Park have done a few movies.
Mhm.
One of their first movies is based off of a comic book character called Orgasmo.
Yep.
And he's got a ray that can make people, climax. And so South Park, obviously, why wouldn't they turn it into a movie? And that typo made me sit there and think, how can I spin this work within that realm?
South Park's known. Their directors. I mean, they did the whole Book of Mormon Broadway musical, which
Mhm.
was hilarious. I mean, ultimately, I have a few favorites. That one's up there with Hamilton, and I mean, it's just like obviously Les Mis because it's a classic, but that's a great story. Thank you. It's great to be able to share those embarrassing moments and laugh about it because honestly, like we all have embarrassment in our lives. So anybody who says, well, I've had nothing embarrassing as of yet in my short writing career. I do imagine, however, eventually I might slip up. Oh, okay, if you say so. Alfred, Ryan, you got one?
Well, we'll play off that. We normally like to follow
Yeah.
that up with if you have like a proud moment or something that's come from your writing or your indie author connect that has really been like an awe moment for you.
Deciding to leave the typo in the book. No, I'm kidding.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah, right.
Bold, sir.
Honestly, it's a bit cheesy, but the proud moment is just finishing the book. I mean, you look at the numbers of people who who want to start a book and never do, who do start a book and never finish, who finish the book and just never do anything with it. I'm proud of myself for accomplishing that, especially with my ADD, 3 kids, 2 jobs. It made me feel good about myself, despite the numerous advances from imposter syndrome trying to, court me, if you will.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
no,
That's a great answer.
Yeah, that's not a cheesy answer at all. I mean, finishing a book is one of the main advice I give young authors is you got to finish the book. And I think any of us who have should absolutely pat yourself on the back because it's such a great accomplishment. It's something you should be proud of.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Now, I want to go. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to ask, do you have a favorite author or if maybe that's too broad of a question, do you have a favorite genre?
Stop reading my mind, Alfred.
We hang out too much.
We do.
I tend to gravitate a little bit more towards Stephen King, but lately I stumbled upon the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks, and I'm
Oh,
3 books into it, and it's
Heard of that one.
phenomenal. He might be taking it for for number 1, but the close second to Stephen King was Justin Cronin. I just like his writing style and how he kind of like crafts together very prosy sentences.
Yeah, he's
Brent
made
Weeks'
for
series
Z.
is great.
He's made for Z. Z's
Yeah.
favorite is Stephen King. Y'all should write a book together. You should co-collab on a short horror novel. I'm just saying.
You're just making Atlas collab with everybody in different areas.
This is what I do. I am a bringer of all good things, and I am the one who allows the Balrog to pass. So, I'm kidding. So what I kind of to play off of what Alfred asked you. So, it's clear that you enjoy horror, mystery, detective style novels. Growing up, did you have, well, first, do you like any other genres besides those? I have a two-part question. That's my first part.
No, that's pretty much what I stick to. I keep my head in the clouds, and I like the fantasy, the magic, Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth, medieval times type stuff.
Okay. So liking those things, I assume you probably grew up reading a lot, Narnia, Lord of the Rings, Goosebumps, a lot of science fantasy, Star Wars, Star Trek, blah, blah, blah. If you could pick somebody, raise them, reanimate them, either living or passed away author, a legendary one that you could write with, and this goes back to kind of the co-collab thing, who would that be? Or if you could continue on a series, kind of like Sanderson did for the Wheel of Time, take it away.
I know there's a lot of authors in the past that have this tainted name, if you will, but honestly, I really love the cult classics that H.P. Lovecraft made, and I would absolutely continue writing eldritch horrors, if you will, and just continuing the legacy of those great monumental monsters that he created, and just kind of dive deeper into the lore of that.
I'm going to go one further. Sorry, go ahead, Alfred.
I was just gonna say I love Lovecraft. He's such a great writer when it comes to scaring the pants off you, and make you really think about what you're doing when you're in a dark room or out at sea.
Oh yeah.
Didn't Z say H.P. Lovecraft too? He said that or a poet. I'm almost positive.
Yeah, he said Edgar Allan Poe as well, but yeah.
Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
And that brings me to my next. I'm going to push it even further. Why H.P. Lovecraft? Why do you love the work that he brings so much? Is it the style? Is it, like Alfred said, scaring you, feeling that real scare? Or is it the characters and the worlds? What brings you to love his style?
I think it's a mixture of all of those things, honestly. My favorite thing about him is how he, you learn all these rules as a writer, show, don't tell, this, don't that, whatever. And a lot of his stories challenge those, and they're phenomenal stories. There's a story he wrote called The Cave. It's just this guy wandering into a cave, ends up in the pitch black darkness, and hears something coming towards him. The entire thing is telling you, pretty much. I mean, there's little bits of how the guy feels, but it's primarily just telling you, and it's terrifying. It follows none of the conventional rules that they tell you to follow today, and yet he still manages to make it this just phenomenal and terrifying story. But then on top of that, you've got the depth and the lore of his worlds and his creatures and all of that stuff. And he just weaves it together really nicely. And don't get me wrong, there's a bunch of other authors that do that as well. But he was one of the first I was introduced to that did it really well.
I love your answer, because I do believe knowing the rules are important, knowing when you can break them and how to do them effectively to go beyond the status quo and bring something new, and proving that showing isn't always the appropriate thing to do in every scene. And I love that you brought that point up, because that just goes to grind the gears of all the people who are set in their ways, I'll just say, with no ability to open their minds to a new possibility of something they could enjoy if they could just. So thank you for that. That was a great answer.
And I think that's one of the beauties of being an indie author is we have that ability to break the rules without, literary agents and publishers telling us, no, you need to do this. So.
And I think you guys know what question to ask him next with what he just said.
Well, actually, I wanna push on Nathan's question and go back to this Lovecraft.
Okay.
If you collabed or took Lovecraft over, would you give it a twist that makes it very Atlas Creed, or would you continue it exactly how it does? And if so, kind of what would be your twist on Lovecraft that makes it yours?
I would. And in fact, kind of piggybacking off of that question, I am tying in some of his lore, or attempting to. I know that he's probably open domain, whatever that's called. But I'm trying not to just kind of cherry pick his stuff out. But I am trying to bring in some eldritch horrors into this other world of my book, and add my own twists to it. So I think to answer your question, I'm already kind of doing that in my
Awesome.
own little way. Yeah.
That's
cool.
that's fantastic.
Fantastic.
Uh,
Alfred,
since I've read your mind this entire time, I might as well. What made you want to go indie author rather than trad pub?
boom, there it is.
All right. So, loaded question. I'm going to load it down with an answer. My biggest aha was I think almost any author dreads the marketing. And that's why I wanted to query. I was like, I'll just go through the rejections, I'll get the queries, whatever, until I realized that modern day publishing isn't as giving as it used to be, at least through the research I've done, talking to some of the other authors and stuff like that. And they're not going to give you a whole lot of marketing. They still want you to kick off on your own foot and do the marketing yourself. They'll help in their own ways. They'll put you on newsletters. They'll set you up some book tours and stuff like that. But all of that stuff I found you can do on your own pretty easily, and you don't have to forego a hefty
you.
royalty towards somebody who did nothing really.
Yeah.
You know?
I've only said it every episode. The marketing is not what y'all think it's out to be. You go with a trad
Yeah.
pub, you still have to do marketing yourself unless you get like some Sean Amick deal where you're blessed upon your wildest lucky dream where they'll do marketing for you. Good luck with that, by the way, finding a publisher who will do that for you.
Oh
And
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
to touch on that a little bit, like we always have this back and forth with indie and trad, and like obviously we're all more supportive of indie here, but the way I've always heard it explained is traditionally public, you'll get a wider market and less back per book, but indie author, you're going to get more back per book that you're selling because you have to do all that work, you're in front, but you're going to hit a smaller market until you find the perfect way to get your book out to the masses. So I mean, they both have that give, even if you're not getting the true marketing traditional public used to give, they still have the avenues to get your book to places indie publishers struggle to get it. But that shift is coming, and
Yeah.
it's going to be much more even playing ground. So
And honestly, to touch on that, I've spoken to some of the Barnes and Nobles around me, and it's surprisingly easy to get your books into their stores. They're not like gatekeepy about that at all, and you don't even have to go in there in person. However, there are drawbacks, and that's the drawback that most indie authors face is the financial part of things. If they do returns or say a Barnes and Noble closes, you're going to have to refund all those books, and that usually ends up costing you money after all the shipping and stuff like that. So it's not difficult to get your book out there, but there are risks involved, and as long as you're okay to take those risks, then there's nothing stopping you really.
That's why I think that Kickstarter is such a great tool now. Even Ingram Spark trying to get they'll do some to get your book into stores. So there are avenues out there to try and help the indie author, and I think a lot of indie authors have started to step up their game as far as like you were talking about deluxe editions and stuff like that many traditional published authors aren't doing unless they are Brandon Sanderson or on Kickstarter. So you're getting a more creative touch on books on the indie side rather than just the cookie cutter you can get on TradPub.
Yeah.
I'll add with Kickstarter, it's good. You create a Discord like a community. I've got one for my readers. I know that I've mentioned it before. It's important to have that connection to your readers so they don't feel like just, oh, a book. This is just updates. They want to be a part of the process. That's all they want. They just want to feel close to the author. So a Kickstarter is all well and good, but you have to have something to shovel to them first. You have to have a relationship you build with them and then talk to them like you would any family. Hey, I'm trying to do this. I could use the help. People are pretty sympathetic when it comes to things like that. And if they like what you're offering, they're going to be like, where do I sign up? Here's $5-10. Good luck. I'll share it with my friends. Booyah. And that brings me to, well, kind of one of my next two questions. I'm just like going insane tonight with double parters, but if, let's say you had somebody come up to you tomorrow and they offered you a trad pub deal, you still got to keep all of your creative freedom. They would do the marketing for you. Would you take it?
I've always said that if the right contract came about, I would take it. I mean, what I want to maintain, like you said, is the creative freedom. I want to be able to choose the cover. I want to be able to lay in as much nuance as I want, interconnect my stories. And in fact, one of the things that I'm doing, this is a bit of a, I don't want to say a spoiler, but it's kind of a giveaway. I went real particular. I don't know if you can see that on the corner of the eye, there's like a crescent shape on her eye.
Mhm.
And that is how I'm doing a Dark Tower and tying my characters together. My main characters all have that signature mark on their eye, and that ties all of their worlds together, if you will. I'm kind of doing a Cloud Atlas where they all are essentially reincarnations of themselves, if you will.
Oh,
And I don't
interesting.
know that a traditional publisher would let me keep that theory going, especially as a brand new author. Am I able to introduce something so ambitious? I know Stephen King did it, but he had been published, what, like 10 years at that point when he finally started introducing something like that.
Yeah.
So as long as I could keep my creative freedom, as long as I could kind of, and I'm a slow writer, so if it was paying the bills and I could write, get rid of my job, and then write during the day, I could maybe move a little bit faster. But it all depends on
Yeah.
the deadlines. It all depends on the freedom I'm keeping, and it all depends on how they're going to approach my book and what kind of rights they're going to leverage over my book. But yeah, if
Yeah.
everything lined up, I would take it.
The famous D word. We hate the D word around this podcast.
Yeah.
Deadlines. Dirty, dirty little deadlines. My second question for you is, you mentioned anime and that you I'm gonna assume that you enjoy it. So what is your favorite anime? I want your two favorites. One based on childhood nostalgia and just when you think of it, it just brings you good memories. And the other one on objectively just because you like the way it's written, the characters, the story.
Okay, are we limiting ourselves to shows, or are we good with movies too?
Movies
whatever
are
you
fine.
want. Yep.
All right. So I've got a couple to this. So Dragon Ball Z is my nostalgia one. I used to come home, pop in a VHS, and set the timer to record Dragon Ball Z when it came on at night,
Nice.
and then watch it later. That's my nostalgia one.
Next on Toonami,
Right.
Dragon
Um,
Ball Z.
my favorite anime show for a while was Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Thank you.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Finally.
I loved it. But if I'm going with movies, I've actually been trumped up on this now. My wife introduced me. I mean, I kind of heard of it and I'd seen a couple, but she really introduced me to Studio Ghibli. I
Ooh.
love the way they did it, and I've only recently kind of went up to that with I don't know the new artist, but they've got a few series out. There's like Your Name. Uh, there's one that I just watched that I can't remember, but they also just came out with Violet Evergarden, and their artwork is just so beautiful, and their storytelling is just so unique and intricate. And I wish that I knew the name of the artist off the top of my head, but that studio that's doing that stuff is great. It's just really well done.
My last thing that I'll touch before I let them take the floor. First of all, rest in peace, Akira Toriyama. It's really sad that he passed away. But speaking of Studio Ghibli, do you remember The Legend of Korra from way back in the day, like the 80s? This was old school anime well before Dragon Ball, when Studio Ghibli was getting their first, like, really soaring off the ground. It was The
Mhm.
Legend of Korra, and that might not be the complete proper name, but it had something to do with Korra. And she was like, the image is like this gal sitting on a dragon or like a large bird or something like that, and it was old school, like right after Gundam, basically. I mean, this is old school. So if you're a fan of Studio Ghibli, I recommend go on to an anime streaming website that's not Crunchyroll, that has a larger selection. Go back to the 19 late 70s and early 80s and look up everything Studio Ghibli did, and it'll blow your ever loving mind.
Okay.
Take,
You've caught my
have some
interest.
have some fun.
Okay, I will.
I'm gonna look this up right now, actually.
So I have a question to take it more away from the author side, but I know you said you have a wife, you have a couple kids. Who is Atlas
Mhm.
Creed when he's not writing? You don't have to get too personal, but just a general idea of what maybe what you do as a job, some interests outside of writing, that kind of stuff.
Sure. Atlas Creed, when he's not a writer, is that typical exhausted parent wondering if he's doing good enough for his kids. Man, that's like the bane of parenting, is making a decision and having no idea the impact it's going to have until years later. And you're like, oh, I messed up. Oops. But no, I work in IT. That's my job. I do AWS and Azure cloud type stuff. It's a lot of fun. I'm really fortunate to be able to work from home, so that kind of helps, get some freedom going and gives me a quiet environment to work in. The downside of that, though, is the job that I left to come to this work from home environment had some of the greatest people, and I still talk to them. I used to come in every morning and there'd be a list on the board, like 10 items that were just empty, and it'd be like top 10 time travel movies. I'm like, oh shit, this is going to be a good day. Or we'd get like top 10 villains, or top 10 crossover movies or something like that, or like A-star list movies, and we would just every day go through these lists and make it like a whole March Madness bracket as we're like defining who's going to make the cut and why. And I just loved it. I miss that social aspect of work, but I also like the quiet house, so it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Also, thank you, Atlas. We'll name the segment after you because that just gave me an idea for another podcast down the line. The Atlas Creed March Madness bracket, where we'll sit and discuss different things like that. So thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.
And Atlas, I just found this for you. So this will take me like 1 minute to read to you, but this is for you so that you can go find it. So one of the most influential anime of all time was Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, 1984, was made during this period. The film gave extra prestige to anime, allowing for many experimental and ambitious projects to be funded shortly after its release. It also allowed director Hayao Miyazaki and his longtime colleague Isao Takahata to create their own studio under the supervision of former Animage editor Toshio Suzuki. This studio would become known as Studio Ghibli, and its first film was Laputa Castle in the Sky, 1986. So go look up some of their old stuff. You will not be disappointed, I promise you that.
I'm gonna go check that out right now. I'm taking notes in Notepad. I'm old school. Courier.
Type in
Valley
type
of
in
the
Google
Wind.
history of anime. It's a Wikipedia. Bring it up and you can look everything from 1960 all the way up to current date. All the history of the animes, when they came out, the directors, the studios, movies, TV shows, all the way back to Lupin the Third. I mean, this goes way back. All right, so check it out. It's old school, man.
And then just to touch on my question a little bit more, as we mentioned off camera, you've got the Washington Capitol hat on. Have you gone to see live games? And if you have, what was your first game that you remember?
Oh, okay. So this one's a loaded question. I know. I'm saying that to every question you ask. I had planned to go to a first game way before the Caps really made it big, and it was against the Pens. And a box seat ticket, was under $200, and I was stoked. I was like, "Man, I'm going to get to go see a game. I finally got some money of my own. This is great." Didn't end up going because it was, with a date, long time ago. But my wife was actually the first one. We went to a game. I think it was either the Red Wings or the Flyers. I cannot remember. But we got corner of the ice seats, and there were so many push-ups in that corner. It was beautiful. Holtby was and always will be my favorite goalie. I'm disappointed that the Caps got rid of him. Shame on them. I almost followed him, but I stuck with the Caps. But yeah, it was back when the tickets were cheap. Nobody really cared about hockey. I loved hockey. And then I didn't go to my first game until hockey got much more expensive. And I think for those corner seat tickets against the Flyers or whoever they were playing at the time, I think those were like $300 for the pair of tickets. It was ridiculous.
Yeah,
so I've been to quite a few games. For my kids for their birthdays. Instead of giving gifts, we try to do experiences. And my son made me so proud last year. For his birthday, he wanted to go see a hockey game. So me and my wife took him, and we watched the Islanders actually get boot stomped under the Capitals. That was fun.
Yeah.
Then we got the game tomorrow. So I'm excited.
That's awesome.
Sidney Crosby, Penguins all the way. Sorry.
No.
Here's the thing.
G-rated.
Hear me
podcast.
out, gentlemen. Hear me out. Okay. All right. I grew up in rural Iowa. All right. We didn't have pro sports, so my selections were wide. And, obviously you can see my sports teams. But we had in Cedar Rapids, the Cedar Rapids Rough Riders, which was a semi-pro hockey team. and we could go there, and it was so much fun to be like, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Cedar Rapids Rough Riders hockey time, and it would just be this. Oh, it was awesome! Like hockey games are so much fun. So,
Oh
man,
A blast.
Like I'd like to think that any sport is better in person.
Yeah.
My wife had never been to football. I am unfortunately Redskins / football team / Commanders fan, and we went when they were the Washington football team and they were playing against the Buccaneers. I was like, that's a fair game. Buccaneers are doing awful this year. It should be an easy win. We were getting stomped. It was like fourth quarter. I was like, all right, well, I don't want to lose and sit in traffic, so let's just get the hell out of here. And then the Commanders had the biggest comeback in NFL history or some crap like that. And I'm just listening to it on the radio, like gripping the steering wheel. I'm like,
I think you mean the Patriots had the biggest comeback in NFL history when they beat the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl. I believe that's what you mean is the largest comeback, right?
well, what was the point spread? I'm pretty sure that the Commanders came back like 33 points.
No, I'm just giving you crap. I'm just
So
giving you crap.
before we jumped on, it was Crosby and Brady were the most hated in their things, and Nathan here
Oh, for
jumps
sure.
on as supporting both of them. So.
I know.
Yeah, I do. And you know what? No apologies, because I'm a Cubs fan too, and I had to like talk people about. They're like, yeah, Carlos Zambrano is like the worst because the dude had anger management problems. But let me tell you one thing: dude could throw a wicked slider. When we used to go to Cubs games in Wrigley, woo, man, I'll tell you what. Y'all come back, you know.
I will amend my previous statement. Tom Brady is hated, but since he's left the Patriots, I think that it is Bill Belichick that is the most hated.
That's
Always
probably
has
true
been.
now. Yeah.
I
think
hate
it was
that,
more
man.
him than it was Brady.
Yeah. I think
Never
it was
liked him.
shared at the time, and now it's like it really revealed who the true villain was. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Brady didn't even like Belichick. All right, like, come on now.
they're both gonna watch this podcast, and then like
Let
we're just
them.
gonna have some answers to get
That'd be
delivered.
awesome.
On the off chance that Brady does watch this podcast, I need to know why he was dressed up like the guy who killed Roger Rabbit in that picture. Like he 100% looked like it. He had the circle glasses. I was waiting for him to take off the hat and have some like crazy blonde hair poking up from there.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
good point.
But
So on
Bringing
this
us-
topic a little bit,
Yeah.
I'm going to tie it back in. I did a TikTok a little while back, maybe a couple of weeks at this point, and it was that I was kind of surprised at how many male like guys that I run into at different conferences where there's still almost that stigma of they don't read or don't want to read, and yet we've got 4 people here enjoy sports, I think pretty cool guys. When is it that you first started to read, Atlas? Was it a young age? Was it later in your teens? When did you first pick up your first book?
So first, if I've given you the impression that I'm a cool guy, I've done this completely wrong. Second, it was actually surprising. It was I didn't read much growing up, but 1984 was a book that was assigned to me as a reading project, and I really, really loved it. And then later on, it was a college book that I was assigned called The Things They Carried. I don't know if you guys have heard of the book. I had to read
Yeah.
it, and I like it wasn't too intense of a book, but something about like all the character relationships and just everything that tied them back. I really enjoyed it. And from there, I didn't really have time. So audiobooks kind of became my crutch. And that's where I did all of my reading. And of course, Stephen King was a big popular one. So I got into him and just listened away. I think it was Michael C. Hall's Pet Cemetery. That was like one of the first ones I dove into. And it was all because I watched Dexter. I was like, this is phenomenal. I'd love to hear him do this audiobook. Why not? This makes sense. So yeah.
that's awesome.
I
Now-
I didn't start reading till my senior year in high school, and it's a stigma I'd love to try and remove because reading is such an amazing gateway into imagination. But thank you for answering that.
Yeah, not a problem. I think the biggest problem is like everybody watches movies. And I think for like the last 2.5 decades, Hollywood has just been remaking movies off of books and comic books and older movies. So
And doing a poor job.
oh yeah, doing a poor job. The books are just the better way to go. So why not?
Nathan's please. Hollywood, I know.
But no, it is frustrating when you grow up with stuff that you have been following your entire life, and then it just completely gets as Honest Trailer puts it, he's just like, from the creator of your fondest childhood memories, then took a huge dump on them. Like, that's just basically what I think of with all of that.
No,
But for you, now that you've been a reader and you've been into this stuff a bit more, Atlas, I'd like to know, as a reader or an audiobook listener, what do you look for when you're reading a book? What makes it good to you? Is it the characters, the world building? Do you like fast paced, slow paced? How do you take your coffee?
So the pacing doesn't matter to me as much as long as the story's interesting. I like characters. I mean, I like world building, I like magic systems, I like a good story, but I like characters above all else. I need them to be relatable or complex at least. And I mean, that's why I liked Avatar The Last Airbender. I mean, you have some deeply complex characters in that show. And Stephen King, the reason I go to him is he makes very complex characters. You know, there are some characters that you get where some people just absolutely hate them and others love them because they're viewing them from a totally different lens. And I'd like to think that was intentional, but you know, then again, I'm a writer and some people have done that with some of my characters. Like, oh, really? You like them? Okay, sure, fair enough. But yeah, the characters above all else for me. I would say the story. Excuse me, the story comes second. World building, magic, and all that stuff is kind of whatever. Yeah, I like it. I like it, but on the list of priorities of what I look for, those kind of come in with added flavor rather than make the meal.
One of my favorite chapters in
Absolutely.
Game of, not specifically Game of Thrones. I think it's the third book. Tyrion is walking from one point to another just to get water in a bucket, and that's the entire chapter. And it's all internal monologue, but it's just building the character. And that's I mean, I'm still talking about it now, and I read it almost 10 years ago at this point. So it's memorable moments like that characters can create. Worlds and magic, you may be like, oh yeah, that was kind of cool, but it's the characters that I feel people talk about way after they finish the book.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Yeah.
That's why I'm team heavy dialogue for a book. I like stuff being described through dialogue. Obviously, you have to have narrative dialogue when it comes to scenery and everything else, but when it comes to lore, characters, emotions, that internal and external dialogue is what seals the deal for me.
Yeah, I got complaints on my book that there's too much dialogue in my book. I was like, what's wrong with that?
Pish posh.
Yeah, I ran it through AutoCrit when I was like experimenting with what editing tools I wanted to use before going to an actual editor. I settled on AutoCrit and I did the whole thing. It's like, your book is 49.6% dialogue. You should look to thin that out. I was like, I feel like I should have more. What the hell are you talking about?
Just tell them you're the chosen one and move on because
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
can't argue with that trope.
That's right.
And when you're writing, do you have a happy place? Do you like to be outdoors, a special spot in nature? Is there one place or another that, brings you that motivation? And do you listen to music when you write?
There's going to be a catch you by surprise answer. Most of my first book, being a father of three with two jobs, was written on my phone on the toilet. That was my reading material.
Nice.
Just on the toilet on my phone, writing and editing.
Time
It's not my
management.
happy place.
Yeah.
It's not where I prefer to write, but that is where most of my creative juice is. But it came out.
That's awesome. I like
Brian,
that.
you got a question?
That's yeah.
What was that?
Did you have a question? I looked like
You
you
have
were
a
going to
question,
ask
brother?
earlier.
I was just gonna say most of all my books are written on my phone as well because I do it in the little free time I have working multiple jobs with kids as well. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna write on this. I'll edit on a computer, but most of the books written on the phone. So I agree with that. But yeah, if we have any final questions
Yeah,
before we wrap up, we're getting close to that
we
time.
are at about that time. Atlas, where do you want people to find you on the socials? Where's the places?
I'm on all of the places, but you can find them all on my website, atlascreedauthor.com. If you care about the socials,
yeah.
go all the way to the bottom of the page and just sift through the BS that's on the way down, and you can find me there. I'm most active on TikTok and Instagram.
I do have
That's a
one
big
final question that I'd like to
temple.
ask, and it's one of my favorites to ask.
Mhm.
Where do you think you'll be in the next 5 years? What is it that you hope to accomplish?
Man, you hit me with real business right now. Uh, I am hoping that in the next 5 years, the Children of Arcanum series is complete and it's released, and I'm making
Nice.
enough money off of that to, fund the rest of my writing career. Quit my job, give a big middle finger to my boss that I actually like. It would just be ironic. Um, and then yeah, just continue writing and helping other authors. I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do.
I have one last question,
Okay, shoot.
and this is one of my favorites that I always seem to forget. If you could be a character in any made-up universe, that's TV show, movie, book, what universe would that be? What universe would you want to be in? Just walking your everyday Joe Schmo life.
Avatar: The Last Airbender, that world, and I would want to be a waterbender. That would be awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that's a good final answer for the podcast. A waterbender.
There you
It
go.
is. Sweet. Well, Atlas, thanks, brother, for coming onto the podcast and taking time to hang out with us. I think it was a fantastic episode. And
Absolutely.
for all of our nerdy listeners out there, we've been your bearded nerdy hosts and guest, because he also has a beard. And we hope that all of you enjoy whatever you're doing for the rest of your night. But until then, do funky fantasy, the bowl, Stratoceros, Atlas Creed, it's the War of Nerds. See y'all next time.